Are you wanting to learn more about self-reliance or curious about how you could start but you feel like you don't have time? I'm Ingrid. This is my homestead, and I'm a busy mom of 4 children running the homestead. But we feel like this is important, not just because it's great to grow your own food and to be able to be self-reliant, but because it helps you to grow good families, grow good memories, grow good food, and grow good habits. So today, specifically, I want to talk about how to start seedlings, the easiest, quickest ways that I know how to help you get started with a garden. Okay, so if you want to start a garden, you can go to a nursery store and buy your plants already started. And that is just fine. Easily one of the easiest ways to get started. But if you want to save money and be able to do this in a way that's more self-sufficient and more economical, sowing your seeds is something you should consider. So in order to start sowing your seeds, there are a few things that you need. You need seeds, you need a proper soil mixture, and you're going to need a system for watering them. Ideally, this happens on a calendar that works best with maximizing produce and harvest in the garden. But that's not necessary to start. That's just if you want to get more out of your garden and maybe get 2 harvests out of it if you have a long enough growing season. But again, not necessary to get started. Seeds, soil, watering system are what you absolutely need to get started. So let's get talking about that. So when you buy your seeds, you want to store them somewhere that's out of direct sunlight, out of heat, and out of humidity. I keep my seeds, I'm about to show you my seed collection, half of my seed collection, in a photo storage box. So it doesn't have to be airtight. In fact, you want a little bit of airflow around your seeds. So I keep them in this photo storage box, and I keep my seeds separated alphabetically by cold season, warm season. It doesn't matter. That is not something that you have to do. That's just how I do it. But so I have all my seeds stored somewhere where I can easily find them. That's the part that matters. Having them in a way that you can easily find them. So that's how I keep my seeds. So I've got my seeds ready. You can buy them at any store. I'm sure you've seen them. You can even find them in the grocery store. You can also order online, and I would like to post one of my favorite places to buy online. While there are many crops to consider, you can buy varieties of each crop, of each vegetable that is genetically modified to be more easily grown, or a hybrid. A hybrid's a better word, to be more easily grown or to be more productive. I like to sow seeds that are heirloom varieties, meaning older varieties that might even be slowly disappearing, or varieties that might be more flavorful but less productive. Maybe they're less disease resistant, and so you have to baby them along more, or just expect a bad year, but they're beautiful and taste great. So that's what I choose to grow. You can choose to grow whatever you want to, but I will link some of my favorite websites that I like to buy my seeds from. So you've got your seeds. Next, we'll talk about your soil mixture. I like to use a 3-part soil to start my seeds in. It's 1 part a compost soil mixture that I already buy bagged. I then like to add peat, sphagnum peat that is already pre-moistened and already crumbled up, and vermiculite. So I mix those 3 things together. I wouldn't say it's exactly 1:1 ratio, but it's somewhere that I eyeball, and it's pretty close. As long as it's able to do what I need it to do, that's all that matters, that it stays loose enough to let those tiny little roots grow. That's what you want. Now, how you put that soil in ready to start for your seeds is probably the easiest part of this equation. You can use a solo cup. If you've bought plants before and you've saved the little plastic pots, reuse those. I have so many of these as I go around planting annuals around my garden. So a solo cup, just make sure that it has drainage. So like this has holes in the bottom, you would want to poke holes in the bottom of a solo cup. You can use these really nice fabric pots I bought on Amazon. They come flat, and you take them out and you just poof them out and sit them down and fill them with soil, and they hold their little shape. I really like these because it maximizes airflow around the roots. They're not biodegradable that I found like they claim that they are, so these I do save and reuse as many times as I can. You can use a newspaper wrapped around a Coke can to give it a shape. You take out your Coke can. This is just tissue, not newspaper. I didn't have any today. But there are YouTube tutorials showing you how to make one. And these work great because they're very porous, and so you don't have to worry about the drainage situation. And I just use a Coke can to give them the shape whenever I use those. Basically, you can use anything to put your soil in to start your seeds. You can use egg cartons, you can use empty egg shells as long as they're rinsed and dried out and baked, preferably. You can use anything that holds dirt. I like to use something called a soil blocker. It is something that I pack the soil into really firmly in here, and then when I press it out, I have little blocks that come out, and there's great airflow around them, and they keep their shape well. There's spiders on it. They keep their shape well, and it works out great for me. I really like these. You can also go to the store and buy a seed starting system that have those little peat discs and a lid and everything. You can do whatever you like. The next thing to consider is how you're going to water them. While you can water your seeds from the top using a very gentle watering system like this little watering piece that you put on top of a water bottle, it just trickles out like the rain, and that's great. You can water them from the top doing that. I like to water my seedlings from the bottom. And to use that, you can use a tray, like those foil pans that you use for casseroles or the plastic lids. You'll easily put whatever pots that you want in there that you have already filled with your soil. Preferably your soil is pre-moistened. And you're going to just, I'm having technical difficulties. You're just going to set them in there and pull water in the bottom of the tray so that the water soaks from the bottom to the top. This is actually very great for your seedlings. You never have to worry about the water damage to the leaves, and it also gives the roots more water than the stem, which can grow a fungus and die on you. So this is how I prefer to water. Not necessary, but this is how I prefer to do it. When I do my soil blocks, I actually use a tray for them that holds the water. So my soil blocks would go in here, and I would continue to water these trays, and you can see there are channels down there to hold the water. So this is the system I use. It's not necessary, but it is. I think it's really important to understand that there are a number of ways to start seedlings, and it can be easy to feel overwhelmed trying to decide what to use or what to do. I think at the end of the day, you pick what works for you. Some of those methods don't work in every climate or every situation. How you might start seedlings if you had a greenhouse is certainly different than if you live in a small apartment with tiny amount of balcony space. So those are things to consider. You do what's easy for you, and that's where you start. It might affect your productivity overall. You might have less germination rate or lower success rates using a certain method than another. Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe you just need to get started, and a 50% success rate with your seedlings is just fine. So you just need to pick what works for you. So this is where I'm at in my seed starting. I'm behind. I talked about the importance of a calendar. You can easily buy one of these very inexpensive, less than $2 calendars. This is for the fall. The other side is the spring. It gives you the dates of when to start every crop. If you move the red line to your last frost date, which we just passed, then this tells me that I'm ready to start. Well, I should have by now started cucumbers and squash and melons and a lot of other of my vegetables. This tells you exactly what to start and when. Takes the mystery out of it, and you can do the same thing for fall. I'm behind already, but it's better to get started than to worry about being a week or two behind. It still will be fine. I have started months late and still gotten great harvests out of the garden. So you do what you can do. Like I said, I'm a busy mom. Sometimes things just don't work out the way I want them to. You do what you can do. Now where I'm at right now, we talked about this calendar, is I've got my soil together in a big Rubbermaid bin. You don't need to mix it up in something that big. You don't need more quantities than what's practical for you. You don't want a lot of leftover soil. I'm going to do a lot of seedlings. But if you want, just get a bucket, a small bowl, whatever works for you. Mix up your soil. So I've got my 3 parts added to my big Rubbermaid bin. I need to pre-moisten it. The reason I pre-moisten my soil is because when you put your seeds in dry soil and go to water it, all that dry soil is just going to flush up, and who knows where your seed's going to end up. So if you pre-moisten your soil, then the seed already has the moisture that it needs to start germinating. And you can forget watering right away. You can wait to water for a few days. And again, bottom-up water system is what I like to do. So I'm going to start moistening my soil, and I'm ready to start soil blocking. And then from there, I'm going to sow my seeds. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking soil out from my big bin in a smaller, more manageable size to work with. I have my soil blockers there, and you can see some of my already blocked soil blocks. I'm going to add, this was still too dry. I did pre-moisten it, but it was still too dry. But that was okay. I wanted it like that so that I could add water to it here to get it just how I want it. And I'm going to add water to this right now. Much wetter, you can see. This is much better to soil block with. We'll see if I can film this one-handed, or so I can soil block one-handed so I can film this. When it's your desired consistency, you want to just push the soil blocker into mounded soil. Push it against the hard surface. I'm going to check and make sure it all looks nice and flat and even. And this is where you push to get them out. So I'm going to, over here on my rack, I'm pushing the whole soil blocker against the ground as I push the clamp down. And jiggle just a little bit. Oh, I think it's too wet. Oh, no, they came out just fine. Okay, here we are planting some seeds. Okay, you want to take this cabbage and do this down this row? Yeah? Okay. I've got my 6-year-old helper. You're going to wave your hand so they can see you. Hi. Hi. Okay. You go 2 down this row. Actually, that wasn't very many. You have to go to 2 down this row. Okay, so you can see I've got all my soil blocks, and you can see that they were a nice moisture level. They're still pretty wet. So he's helping me by putting 2 seeds. This is really usually all we need because the germination rates are usually so good. This is one of my new favorite companies to buy from, Seed Savers Exchange. I love the varieties they offer, and I love oftentimes the stories behind those varieties. But I'm a stories person. If you sell something to me with a good story, I'm hooked. So that's how we are. So something I wanted to talk about with these seeds, and you can see I'm struggling with this seed envelope that's just from the store. I like these other companies I buy from, Seed Savers Exchange. I love Johnny Select Seeds. I really love Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. And Territorial Seed Company, same. These other companies, they all use self-gummed envelopes, so they're really easy to open and reseal. Store-bought seeds, not so much. So I've shown you some of my favorite seed companies. Oh, you finished with that? Do you have enough for a second row?
Maybe.
Okay, you go down a second row. I'll do this row. And I showed before how I keep my seeds in these photo storage containers. They're not totally airtight. They do help to control some of that ambient temperature a little bit. Well, something you can do to make them last longer is to put them in your fridge or in the freezer. But if you do that, you want to make sure to keep any moisture or possibility of freezer burn away. So I know a lot of people will wrap them in a type of newspaper or those paper envelopes and keep them in the freezer in a can for decades. So that's definitely an option if you want to keep your seeds good for many, many years. In fact, I was contemplating taking these entire photo storage containers and keeping these in my freezer. So I do have really big freezers, chest freezers that we keep for all of the meat that we process, and I freeze a lot of the garden harvest as well. You're done? Okay, let me pick that up. So I'm going to be making the markers for these as well. And while you are doing my next one, you want to do a roast celery right here? This celery is easy. Yep. So a lot of times people ask me, what does pelleted mean? This package of celery is pelleted. Usually those seeds are so small, but what the seed company will do for you is they will take in the proper amount of those tiny seeds and coat them into pellets. So those pellets are a lot easier to grab and keep track of, and also to see when you, here, open your hand, I'll put it in your hand. Just cup one hand. And they're a lot easier to keep track of as you put them in the dark soil. So I think I did this one so here. Okay, so this is a comparison of those pelleted seed versus regular celery seed. So you can see these pelleted make it a lot easier to handle. You start there. 2 in each hole. And if you can see, these seed blocks are really nice. They've got an indentation. It's perfect to keep those seeds right in the center of your seed block. To say I am a fan would be underplaying it. I really like these seed blocks. When I label my seeds, you can use the plastic ones. I like to use these little wood ones. I just feel like it's a little bit more sustainable, but you can use plastic ones, and I think you can even reuse them if you have the plastic ones. But when you do, you have to use a marker that is meant for being used outside. So this is an oil-based permanent marker, and that's what you need to do if you want your writing to last through the weather. I like to write the name of the crop, the variety, on the back, the date it was sown, as well as an acronym that I have for the company that I bought the seeds from. So that is what I like to do. Okay, now that we have our tray filled, oops, oh no, I'm losing it. I've lost it. Can you get it? Your tiny fingers win. They win the day. Okay. Now that we're done, we're gonna take vermiculite that I bought at the local plant nursery.
That's heavy.
Plain old vermiculite. I can find this at Lowe's, but it comes in smaller bags and it's more expensive. So we're just gonna take the vermiculite and we're gonna lightly cover our seeds. Okay. The reason we just lightly cover in vermiculite, you could also just use the same loose potting soil, but you just want to do a light cover. A lot of these tiny seeds really aren't going to make their way up through anything too thick. So to help your germination rates, you just do a light cover. Now some of them might want you to press it in, but the seed packet should specify. And this tray is done. Should we keep on going, bud?
Yeah, but maybe not this video. It's going to be too hungry. People are going to be like, this is taking so long.
You think they're going to think that?
Yeah.
I forgot to talk about lighting, which is very important for starting seedlings. When I had a smaller amount of seedlings that I started, I just used a sunny window, and that worked fine. You can also use a covered porch that has a good amount of shade during the day. That works fine too. I use these shelves with grow lights because I have such a large number of seedlings that I'm working on.
But that's it, and happy growing!